One of the Red Sox top prospects is now 100% ready to go, and that could mean a monster season is on the way. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and I feel like at this point, Marcelo Mayer is a bit underrated right now, both nationally and within Red Sox Nation amongst Red Sox fans. It's not for a wrong reason. It's mostly because Roman Anthony had an absolute monster year last year and is now the Red Sox top prospect. You had Kyle Teal drafted by the Red Sox in 2023, who had an absolutely incredible first appearance in the minor leagues, which leaves Marcelo Mayer as sort of that third back burner type prospect, and that's mostly due to the injury that he had in 2023. However, now that he's healthy and ready to go for 2024, I expect Marcelo Mayer to hopefully be able to come back and have a monster season and prove just how good he could possibly be. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to break down the latest news surrounding Marcelo Mayer, what it means for his 2024 season, what it means for the Boston Red Sox, and we're also going to break down what to expect from Marcelo Mayer in the 2024 season. But before we get into that, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, I think obviously the best place to start here is with the news itself, with the latest reports surrounding Marcelo Mayer before we get into what kind of impact he may have and what kind of impact this news may have. For those of you who may not know, last year Marcelo Mayer couldn't get a full minor league season because of the fact that he injured his shoulder about halfway through and ended up in rehab for most of the year. Now, the last sort of news or report that we had on Marcelo Mayer and his injury was that he was still rehabbing and there was a minor setback, and this came from Alex Spear, that would be reassessed after Thanksgiving. There were a lot of question marks as to what his timetable may look like. Well, those have been put to bed a little bit because yesterday we got our first legitimate report of where Marcelo Mayer is at in his rehab, and that came from Rob Bradford, where he said Marcelo Mayer is full go for this offseason and 2024. His shoulder is not a hindrance, and he will be part of the Red Sox rookie program next week. Obviously, this is absolutely fantastic news, not only for Marcelo Mayer, but for the Boston Red Sox in general. There were a lot of questions, like I just mentioned, about when Marcelo Mayer would even be ready to go to play baseball again. There were some questions as to whether or not he'd even be able to start the season at a regular pace, and in such a pivotal year in his development, this is the best possible news we could get, because last year, his injury really affected how he played. According to an interview he did with Rob Bradford, Marcelo Mayer actually injured his shoulder on May 7th. Before May 7th, he had a .337 average with a .414 on base percentage and a .582 slug, good for a really impressive .996 OPS or a .168 WRC+, basically 68% more productive in the box than the average hitter in the minor leagues. This was by far and away Marcelo Mayer's most productive season in the minor leagues so far. However, after his injury, things took a really big downward turn. He tried to play through that shoulder injury for a pretty decently long period of time, and he ended up after this injury having just a .190 average with an even lower .256 on base percentage and a really poor .366 slug, good for only a .662 OPS or a .66 WRC+, about 33% below league average production. Clearly, a lot of his struggles last year came from trying to play through this injury, and I think this last season could be a really great learning opportunity. He wanted to keep pushing through this injury. He wanted to keep developing. He wanted to make that track as fast as he possibly could, and ended up hindering his performance, and kind of is the reason why he dropped out of the top 10 prospects in Major League Baseball, why many consider Roman Anthony the best prospect on the Boston Red Sox right now, right? He felt the repercussions of trying to play through that injury, and I think that's a great learning opportunity as he continues to grow. Sometimes these things take time, and that's a hard lesson to learn, but it's an important one to learn at such a young age. And like I mentioned earlier in this video, Marcelo Mayer's 2024 season is going to be extremely pivotal to his development. He obviously is still young and has some time to get to the major leagues, but the fact that he's coming off this injury, going into a healthy season, the fact that he's going into his age 21 season, and the fact that he has some AA experience, there's a pretty good chance that if he performs well at the AA level to begin the year, he's going to be pretty quickly fast-tracked up through the minor leagues, possibly even breaking Major Major League Baseball in 2024. So the question here is, what can we expect from Marcelo Mayer now that he's fully healthy and going into the 2024 season, and how does all of this affect the Boston Red Sox? In terms of what I'm expecting from Marcelo Mayer in 2024, it's basically a bounce-back campaign. Now, some people are saying that he might have a breakout season. I don't consider, if he does well in 2024, a breakout season. Marcelo Mayer has been really excellent throughout the entirety of his minor league career, so a breakout really isn't the word I would use. I would say a bounce-back season. And what a bounce-back season for me, what that looks like for Marcelo Mayer, is basically doing what he's done throughout his minor league career, which is put up at least a WRC plus of 120 or 20% above league average production. I think that's sort of at the bare minimum of how Marcelo Mayer can impact the game in the minor league system. I think that should be exactly what you're expecting from Marcelo Mayer in 2024. What this means is basically, if he could do this at the AA level, I think there's a pretty good chance he's pretty quickly moved up to the AAA level. I don't think it'll be within the first couple of weeks here, but over the first couple of months, I think it's entirely possible that he plays a majority of his 2024 season at the AAA level. What this then means is that he's going to be real close to Major League Baseball, if not cracking Major League Baseball. And I think there is a possibility that by the end of the season here, Marcelo Mayer is not only on the 40-man roster, but he's on the 26-man roster, 27 or 28, whatever it is when they expand rosters in September. I think it's 28. There's a real possibility that he ends up as one of those players that are September call-ups and get his first legitimate taste of Major League Baseball in 2024. So in my opinion, a breakout year or a bounce back year for Marcelo Mayer looks something like a 130-ish WRC plus in AA and hopefully in AAA as well, and then a best case scenario, a Major League debut. And I think this is 100% possible because this is the type of player Marcelo Mayer is. I'm not asking for anything out of the ordinary. I'm asking him to just continue to do what he does, and I think that's fully possible now that he's 100% healthy. Now, in terms of the impact this may have on the Boston Red Sox, this is a bit of a tricky question to answer because realistically, he's not going to be up here for an extremely long period of time, right? He's not going to be a trade deadline call up because you traded someone else. He's just not going to be ready by that point. So it's going to be overall a pretty small sample size, and that limits the amount of impact he could have, but that doesn't mean it can't be impactful in a short period of time. The problem here right now is that Marcelo Mayer doesn't really have a true clear path to Major League Baseball. You've got Trevor Story at shortstop, and unless the Red Sox trade him, which I think is a terrible idea considering how far away Marcelo Mayer still is, there's not really a clear path there. You just acquired Vaughn Grissom, who has 6 years of control, who's still technically just above a rookie himself, who will probably be playing every single day. That's not a clear path either. So unless they trade one of those guys, which again, I really don't think is going to happen, I don't think it's a good idea, it's going to be interesting to see exactly where the Red Sox play him, if he stays healthy like we're projecting him to, and if he has the path that we want him to. Most likely, what we're talking about here is that even if he does get the call up to Major League Baseball, it won't be in that starting everyday shortstop role. If he does end up at the major leagues at some point, my guess is that he ends up as sort of a platoon type player, either with Trevor Story, which I think is less likely, or with Vaughn Grissom, who I think is more likely. If he's going to get called up at any point, I think the impact he has on the Boston Red Sox is he's going to be that sort of platoon left-handed bat at second base, and then sort of either fight his way into a starting spot there or overtake Trevor Story at the end of the year. Now, the big thing here is, what does this actually impact look like long term? Does this mean that Trevor Story becomes extremely expendable? It might. Does it mean that Vaughn Grissom becomes expendable? It might, right? We don't really know entirely what the impact of Marcelo Mayer being fully healthy is yet because he hasn't played his season, but I could see the Red Sox utilizing the fact that he's young, that he's a top prospect, and if Trevor Story stays healthy for the entire season, flipping him later on down the road. And I think that could be a realistic possibility here in terms of impact with the Red Sox. Now, there is another possibility in terms of his total impact. Now that he's fully healthy, that sort of prospect capital that he's worth goes back up a little bit, and this could mean he's included in a trade. I don't love this idea. I don't love the idea of honestly trading any of our top 3 prospects, mostly because if the Red Sox aren't all in 2024, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me to completely deplete the top of your farm system, especially with how close some of these guys are to being ready for Major League Baseball. And in fact, all 3 of these guys should be on your team in 2025. Why trade one of them now when you're not all in 2024? There's not really a ton of players that I would put Marcelo Mayer on the board for. However, Craig Breslow has been known to be pretty bold with his trading decisions. If he thinks it's a good idea for the Red Sox, despite the optics, despite who the player is, they're going to make that trade, and that could include Marcelo Mayer. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a blockbuster type deal that includes him at some point this offseason. Honestly, there's a very short list of players that I would even consider putting Marcelo Mayer on the board for. That list is George Kirby. Basically, that's it. It's going to take probably a Marcelo Mayer type prospect to get Jesus Luzardo, but I don't think it's worth it for the Red Sox to do that. I've seen some mock trades by Bleacher Report and some other places that have Marcelo Mayer going in for Dylan Cease. I would absolutely in no way trade Marcelo Mayer to acquire Dylan Cease, and I think he could be a really important piece of the Red Sox going forward, but there is that possibility still, right? The possibility he gets traded is definitely there. Either way, I think it's fantastic news that Marcelo Mayer is healthy and ready to go. I think he's going to show a lot of people why at one point he was a top 10 prospect in baseball this year. Personally, my favorite prospect in the Red Sox farm system, someone I am very excited to see develop. I am praying to God it's in a Red Sox uniform at some point, but I want your opinion in the comment section down below. 1, what do you think of the news that Marcelo Mayer is fully healthy? Good or bad? I'm assuming mostly good, but I don't know. 2, what do you think Marcelo Mayer's 2024 season could look like? Do you think he gets fast-tracked? Do you think they take time with him? And 3, do you think he stays on this team in 2024, or do you think the Red Sox end up trading him before he gets the opportunity to really have that bounce-back season? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest Red Sox news in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.